Heidi ho, folks. I think we should now be connected and going to you live on the YouTube channel of Actions to Wealth. Welcome aboard. It is Hump Day, Wednesday, the 15th of April, halfway through the month already. Goodness gracious, Ignatius. There's a bit happening in the markets at the moment. Actually, Ash and I are just racing around trying to find out what's happened to the Aussie. And, well, I've got to say it's good news in many ways that the Aussie is coming off, not least of which because it gives us an opportunity to get into the longs. That's going to be my theme for the day anyway. We'll take a good look at that as we go through. Good morning, Ash.
Good morning, mate. Good morning. Yeah, we're just seeing the... as you just said, the Aussie is moving against just about every single currency out there, and it's moving effectively to the downside.
There's a bit of dollar strength in there as well. I'm noticing that across the board also.
I'm seeing some dollar strength as well. Don't really see too much in the way of the indices on the charge.
Does that mean the S&P is coming off?
Let's have a very quick look, mate, at this.
Coming off is the word I was looking for.
Coming off. Let's have a very quick look before we put the pound trade in. The FTSE 100 is definitely under stress here, but let's consider now. We did say about it coming down. Look how it's drifted, though. It's an awful price action. And actually, people asking about the RSI. The RSI is a momentum indicator, and this is telling us that there's just no momentum. So the problem with trying to trade something like this, it kind of tells us quite a lot about the about what kind of, it's basically got no volatility. This is almost going to act like a volatility indicator as well, which is going to be a difficult trend to trade in some respects, and it might just drift around these levels, no doubt.
I'm thinking we can't see your screen. Maybe that's my fault.
Okay.
No, you should be able to take it.
Sorry, that was my fault. Here we go. That better?
That's better.
Yeah, so we've been drifting down. We've broken this trend line, and this is on the hourly chart. We've broken this trend line, but look how we've broken it. Just drifting down. So, we've got some information that, in fact, let's see what information we have. Aussie dollar, which is usually the proxy for, in fact, the Aussie yen. Usually a good proxy for the feeling in the market, the way the market feels right now. We've got a Head and Shoulders that's appeared on this Aussie yen. Now, the reason that this tends to be a good proxy for the stock market is that the Aussie tends to be a risk-on currency with commodities tend to be used when economies are growing. And the yen tends to be a safe haven, so people will rush to the yen when economies are under stress. And with the Aussie yen weakening significantly, it's not just a weakening, but it's a significant weakening without a retest actually as yet. That is suggesting that we are in risk-off fashion today. But the FTSE hasn't really given us anything nice and clean. It's just, maybe we really do see it start to motor and move, but it hasn't so far really. The best time frame to look at this on is this 15, which is a terrible time frame to try and have to get information from. Great for entries, but no good for information really. Probably a bit of a channel going on as well. Let's see if we can find out where it is. Could be somewhere around about there. It's not the best channel in the world, but looks like we're just an all leg going on. But let's go out a little bit. Yesterday's bar ended up giving us that shooting star ish. Certainly bearish anyway. Inside bar, it also tested a high. There will be entries below the low of this bar with stops at this level here. So there are currently people that are entering off this bar with a 200 pip stop loss, leading them down to this area here, which would mean they've got a 2-to-1 trade. Not the worst trade in the world by any stretch. But if we want to kind of get a little bit more confident on this, then we would probably want to enter a little bit lower, but have stops tighter. So if we look at this to start with a 4-hour, the trend line on the 4-hour runs us up here, which we haven't broken through as yet, and we can see that better now on an hourly chart. That's where it's leading us to, so that you can see right back here. Oops. You can see right back here, we got the lows down here. And extrapolating out is taking us here. Make sure that's right on the low. There we go. And that takes us into this area here. So it's really anywhere in this area is still something that has to be looked at for buying opportunities and not yet selling. Now that's not the worst thing in the world, you know. If we think about so this is yesterday's price action. So the low of this point here will be where people's entries are lying, probably about to be triggered, maybe under the pivot here. But until it breaks that pivot, we haven't really got any real confidence that that bar is going to play out. But with that bar in the bank, now if we can wait for this hourly to break down, retest, we can put stops here rather than at the high, which is going to give us pretty much the same risk to reward ratio as the people that are entering on the slightly better actually than the people that are entering on the daily bar. But we're going to have more information and a bit more confidence that the trend has actually started moving to the downside. But right now, really, this is still a buy zone. So we can't do anything. We just have to wait and see, mate. That's all we've got. You know, S&P really isn't giving us too much information. Again, it's holding up this daily pivot, still in an uptrend. Dow Jones, it really looking the same as the S&P. And the Nasdaq is always the stronger performance, or it seems to be recently anyway, of the American markets, and still looks pretty solid. So nothing else is pointing lower at this stage, mate. So you know, apart from checking out that Aussie yen, we don't really have a you know, that wouldn't give me the confidence to say we are risk off. Let's just go short, and you know, and effectively you'd be hoping for the best. I don't think we've got enough information to go short with any real confidence. Looking across the board, we have got barometers that are suggesting the FTSE 100 is bearish today. 30% of stocks have opened in positive territory. The rest of them are negative. Still the big names are, you know, still the names from yesterday are outperforming the supermarkets and some of the pharmaceuticals. Tobacco companies continue to do well, which they tend to do actually in times of crisis, strangely enough. So British American Tobacco and Imperial brands are both pushing to the upside. Pharmaceuticals.
Away,
What's that, buddy?
Everyone's chuffing away. It's nervousness. Eh?
Yeah. I mean, you know, usually that kind of thing, that's, and you know, I would have thought, you know, anything to do with watching TV and smoking would be a good mix in this environment, and pharmaceuticals, of course. And so far, that has proved to be the case. But the FTSE, generally speaking, you know, it would have been difficult not to pick something that went to the upside in the last couple of weeks, because everything's been rising. Everything's been going up. So not really a lot to garner right now, mate. I have to say, I'm still looking at Ashtead for a short, and that's probably the only one that I'll be watching for the day. There's still no price point on that for me to have too much confidence as yet. So nothing to report as yet, mate. Looks like a pretty sleepy day, and you know, still haven't worked out why the Aussie's tanking the way it is. If anybody can shed some light on that, that'd be fantastic. But we can't see it here as yet.
Yeah, look, I should be able to if it's something to do with fundamentals, but I haven't been across the news all day and really just sat down in front of the charts after a bit of a break. I did have half an hour or so in front of them earlier, but didn't really get too much done. And lo and behold, exactly what we were looking to trade yesterday actually happened. Timing is everything, and we'll get to that shortly. But first up, the pound trade. All right, let's do that. We could do with a winner on the pound, I've got to tell you. Hasn't been performing too well in the last few days. And yesterday was the worst of them, actually. We nearly got a full loss. When I say a full loss, obviously we're trading this at beta test levels. But we just about got the entire stop loss hit with a very, very brief respite from that on the trail. Okay, so the hourly chart is telling us the range today is 3 bars, which is unusual of late. Well, there are always 3 bars, but the high of the first bar is the high of the range, and the low of the last bar is the low of the range. So we'll place an order. We better get that into the market by the look of it. Short will be the first one we put in the market, and we will go 10 pips underneath the low of that bar. It will be a sell stop. And the low of that bar, if it's going to tell me that, come on, you can do it. Doesn't want to. Maybe I can get rid of that, might help. Yeah, there we go. 125.70 is the low of the bar, so the entry will be 125.60. 1.2560, which didn't even register for some reason. There we go. And the stop loss will be 15 above the high of that bar. It's not going to tell me that. Gotta love that. There it is. 1.2608 becomes 1.2609. And we add 15 to that. So 1.2624 is the stop loss. 1.2624. And there we go. Order in the market. And wow, we would have been very close to being triggered there by the look of it, but it haven't. So the long, we need to put a buy order or buy stop order in the market. And the price will be, it looks like we may not have to worry about this one, but we'll go there anyway. Whatever the stop loss was, and I've forgotten now, let's call it 1.2624. That's what it should have been. I hope it was 1.2624. And the stop loss for the short, sorry, that is the stop loss for the short. The stop loss for the long is 10 pips under here, which would have been that doesn't look right. 1.2560. Okay. Righto, so there's the long order as well. So the buy stop at 1.26. Good Lord, my mind's gone to Billio at the moment. Can't remember that one again. 2624. And the stop loss for the long is 1.2. Go there. 25. Oh my God. It doesn't matter. I think we've been triggered, haven't we? No, we haven't. Okay, interesting. What is that level? Sell stop there. What is this line here I've got? Ah, that's what's throwing me out. Righto, so let me go through that again. The entry for the sell is 1.2560. The stop loss for the long is 1.2560. The entry for the long is 1.2624, which is also the stop loss for the short. Okay, so we're not in any trade here. Well, we are still in the trade that we took last Wednesday, I think it was. And that has been through TPs 1 and 2. So still going strong on that one. Big retracement here at the moment that we're seeing. Back to the former resistance level. Let's see if we can burst through that and then come back and retest that from below. That will be fairly bearish signal if that were to be the case. If I'm looking to trade this outside of that today, and really I'm not, because we are, as you know, trying to manage the long at present, and I don't see any reason to change anything. What is interesting, however, is that we haven't gone to our next level, which is our either take all or take most off the position, because that's the obvious resistance area. There's a little bit through here, but you wouldn't say that's obvious resistance, would you? So therefore, technically, I don't really understand why we're coming off at the moment. Maybe it's just a little bit of profit taking, who knows? But we'll see if that can continue. If it does, I don't know that I'm going to change polarity at any time soon. Yeah, I still think this level is the strongest level. So I've got to be saying, you know, this is definitely target area. So I'm really not a bear in any way, shape or form. I think I'll just wait for the retracement. Did you want to come back to you, mate? Obviously, I don't trade the first bar of UK session on the 30-minute chart.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really anything to report on the FTSE, but I mean, I can give you the I can certainly. In actual fact, let's just deal with some of these questions as well. Good morning, by the way, Kumar. Good morning. Good morning, Crystal. Good morning, PL. Good morning, Sanka. So any ideas why the pound tanked yesterday afternoon? Let's have a quick look at that to start with. So
Thank you, PL. That's very kind of you, mate.
If you want to give me the screen, mate.
Yeah. There you go.
We go. Let's bring this in here. Yeah, look at the S&P. Sorry, this is the Nasdaq. Nasdaq still continues to grind its way higher. S&P is a little bit frozen here. We can, again, there's just no at this stage. There's just no information that suggests that we should be looking lower. As yet, it's going to have to break that trend line, and this is I suppose this is the key with this stuff, and it's no different to the FTSE. So let's bring it back to the FTSE. If it and that line might be a little bit tighter. We won't know that really until we get another bounce from somewhere. But this is the thing with this. If this market does break down, and we can get what would be the ideal entry, if it breaks down here and then shoves its way back again. So let's say we get something like that, and then something like that. Then we could be looking possibly for a some sort of entry under a reversal bar, or we're basically looking in this area. So as long as it doesn't close back above the trend line, then we can take it. That would be better if it took a little while coming to that point, actually. So it'd be better if we do get a bar coming down. If we can get a bar coming down, and then a few bars maybe just messing around down here. So by the time it does come back again, it runs into these pivots. If that was to happen, then we can start to look at sorry, that should be that side. We can start to look at entering on something like that, but the key was always going to be the price. It still needs to get down below the pivots and probably the trend line to really give us a bit more confidence in our entry to the downside. So we're looking at around about 57.40, only about 10 pips away from where we are now. But it's got to break below that area first, and if it comes back and tests, then we can take our trade to the downside. So that'd be the ideal scenario. But right now it's just so sleepy, because really what can happen here is, instead of us getting that, what we should be looking for at this stage is probably more like a break above here. Maybe even testing that daily pivot. And if it comes back, we should really be looking at the long here. That's not my preferred option, because I'm still longer term bearish. But if that's what presents itself, that's what we're going to have to do. And even that is going to be kind of tricky. It depends on what patterns available for us. Definitely getting above the daily pivot will give us a long. Coming to touch the daily pivot and testing, we'll probably have to take a speculative long. Just because if we don't, then we could get caught without taking advantage of a move to the upside. So a few things could happen here, mates. But look how it's just dead at the minute. It's just nothing's going on with this. But let's have a look at the pound really quickly, because question about why did the pound tank a little bit? And
you mean into afternoon US session, Crystal, where it came off the high? That's the only kind of tank I can see. But I
this one here.
Where are you? Hang on, I haven't got your chart.
This is yesterday. It's moving. It's on the move today.
It sure is.
I guess as is the dollar, right? I mean, the dollar seems to be a pretty strong story today. But in saying that, seeing that the euro is actually showing some signs of strength against the pound, which makes this Aussie even more interesting. The fact that the pound did actually manage to pick up against the Aussie. You see, if we are going to be going long the pound Aussie, it looks to me like there might be an opportunity if this pulls back into this area and we still want to go long. That would look pretty good to me. But the problem is, so let me talk about the pound. I don't know too much about the Australian. I don't know enough about the Australian economy in comparison to the pound. But let me tell you what's been going on in the UK. So start with the Office of Budget Responsibility, the OBR, which is a UK-based company, have said that if we have a protracted lockdown, it could potentially shrink the UK economy by 35%. Now that is huge. There have also been reports that the UK could be the worst hit country in Europe by the time this is all done. So we find out, I think, either tomorrow or maybe even later this afternoon, what the next next lockdown phase is going to be. There's likely to be another 3 weeks of lockdown in this country, and if that's the case, then it may well slow the economy sufficiently enough to shrink the balance sheets and affect, and then the knock-on effect will be a weaker pound, because it sounds like we may well be, comparatively speaking, one of the worst hit. They have said, if we go to the IMF has said the world economy is likely to shrink by 3%, the US by 5.9%, but the growth in 2021 will be 5.5%, which makes this whole thing a bit tricky. We know that the economy is shrinking, but people are still positioning themselves a year plus out. And if that's the case, then as soon as they read that there's a 5.5% bounce back in 2021, then some people will be quite happy to just buy some stocks here relatively cheaply and hold on to it. In other kind of news that we've missed overnight, China have pumped another $4 billion in. And obviously, Trump has said that the World Health Organization has failed by not reporting and trusting. They said that he said that they failed by trusting China too much with the reporting of the coronavirus. So he is withdrawing funds from the World Health Organization, supposedly,
he was going to, so yeah.
Yeah, or maybe threatening to. I don't know, but it would be. It would probably be incredibly irresponsible if he was to do that. I don't really know enough about what the WHO do in comparison to some of the other health organizations. But if they are going to play an important role in stopping this pandemic somehow, then it would be pretty remiss, I would have thought, of Trump to remove aid to them. But maybe they're not. Maybe they don't play as an important role as some of the separate companies from here on in. I don't know. So it's a difficult thing to comment on. But in some respects, he's kind of at it again, and doing his same old, where he's really shaking up the wasp's nest again. So that
it's also a perfect deflection, of course, away from.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, and I wonder whether that might be, maybe more to the point.
Maybe, I don't know it. And how would you know? And these are the things that we, are very, very challenging. It is very, very difficult to know what is factual, what is from Trump, I mean, and what is barbs pointed at, different organizations, mainly China, I've got to say, but, it can change on the heartbeat. It can be Russia, it can be whoever. But I think that's a lot to do with deflection. But that said, he's not the only one saying it right now. I heard a bit of a commentary yesterday and last evening over here in Australia, and he's got a few mates in that particular attack on the World Health Organization. I don't know. It's impossible to say yes, no, or otherwise, in my humble opinion.
Just in StarMax post as well, StarMax is saying that the Aussie Westpac consumer sentiment was down minus 17.7%, and it's
Yeah,
sold
I saw
off.
that number. Would that
Is
be a surprise to anybody?
I don't know. I mean, it's not a huge number, but this is that time period here. Was it the trigger that kind of sold us off? As Jeff's pointed out, I suppose maybe the significance of the Aussie is the fact that we were in a position where we were at a level of resistance here. And when you get to a level of resistance, then it can take very little to tip it, back down to at least some sort of corrective phase. Looking at that, the Aussie against that one, same with the CAD as well. It kind of got to a fairly lofty level, and maybe just away from a resistance point there, but pretty close. The yen, same thing. Look at that, right on the gap, pretty much. We start to sell off in the Aussie yen. Aussie Kiwi, just beyond the resistance point. So maybe coming back to retest this particular point here, and continuing down to the
But this is
pound
not
Aussie.
something to be sad about, Ash. I've got to tell you, this is
I know. This is good for you, isn't it? But I suppose
word.
what I'm saying is that and look at that. That's almost an ideal point to be looking for a buying opportunity right there. But looking at this, is it that it only needed something very, very small to tip the balance, and that's why we see it going in the direction? Or, which is what I suspect, is there something else that we just haven't managed to unearth yet that's happening? Because that's a pretty fairly significant sell-off for the Australian dollar right across the board. Maybe it is that it was in overbought territory, against all currency pairs, and there was nothing else around it, so people have reacted off that. I don't know, but if that's right, if what we've done is react off the Aussie Westpac consumer sentiment, that number is relatively arbitrary. So that does mean that any Aussie, any strength against the Aussie does create an Aussie buying opportunity, because that number isn't going to be significant enough to suppress a fundamental shift with the Aussie. So yep. So yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think maybe what this is doing is creating some opportunity here. Which Jeff
we tried to trade this exact thing last night, and we were a little bit early. As I said, we might have been a bit early, and for that reason we only went in very light and got knocked over actually. But I must apologize to the people who went into that trade, because really we should have taken TP1 at DR1, and we failed to do that. I'll get into that when I go through my analysis. To answer your question, Ace, no, CAD yen is definitely not still valid. If I give you a daily trade or a 4-hourly trade that I'm interested in taking, or an order that goes into the market, as soon as the end of day comes, it should be cancelled. So you don't need to ask that question anymore. What I do is have another look at it the next day, and if it's still valid, I then place the order again. This morning I had a look at that, and I told my guys that the low had been, well, in fact I don't know that I did tell them, but they know to cancel the order anyway. Not interested in taking it again, because the stop loss would have been taken out with the yesterday's candle. So no, cancel the order. Sorry, mate.
That's okay, mate. That's all right. Okay, so I was just actually just looking across the board just a little bit to see if I could garner any more information, and I don't really have a whole bunch. The FTSE 100 is drifting again to the downside. So look at it here, right on the monthly pivot. So maybe we get an opportunity. It doesn't look like it's going to be in this session, but maybe we get an opportunity by the end of the day. We just need it to close down here. Just need it down here, and then we can place an order on the retest. But otherwise, we've just got to wait, mate. It is just a slow day, as Paul Simon would say.
I don't know that one.
Probably for the best, mate. I think you would have burst into song if you did. So where we
at? I saved that for the US session.
Yeah, save it till next week. So we've got core retail sales from the States. We've got retail sales from the States as well. Okay, this is going to give us an idea of something which is this is the other thing, isn't it? We've got some numbers from Australia coming, and I wonder whether we might be just positioning a little bit for those. China GDP is the big one this week. This is making trading just generally a little bit tricky, as we lead into the weekend again. Maybe we find out a bit more when we get those retail sales. Maybe the market moves, I should say, when we get the retail sales out. I would suspect those retail sales are going to be pretty dire. So we'll log those in and see what that's telling us about the economy. But because they are numbers that will be, what's the word? They're not kind of forward leading numbers. Things like the retail sales, they'll probably just tell us what we already know. But it still may jerk the stock market into action. But yeah, that's really all we can do, mate. There's nothing else out there. I'm just looking at gold as well. Grinding its way down. So this is really another dollar strength story. So there does seem to be a little bit of positivity with the dollar so far this morning. And WTI, I wouldn't mind just having a quick look at as well, see what shape that's in.
Oh, right down at the lows, mate. It's
continuing to grind its way lower, isn't it? That production cut has just not had any effect whatsoever. So this is going to need more, and we know how motivated Trump is to do with that. So that's going to be a little bit more in the way of policy for us to probably pick up with WTI. I mean, down to this point, it was cheap before, and it will probably be held at this price initially. But I think there was enough commentators calling for WTI to be down at 15 for it to possibly happen anyway. We don't know, but yeah, nothing's helping that one out just yet, mate.
We are being helped out on the pound at the moment in our breakout trade. It has broken out to the downside. We are in the move, and we've got a very nice first 15-minute bar. If we could get a second and a third even, that would be very, very nice. We will have a look at that in just a tick. So, mate, I'll go through a few currencies, shall I?
Yeah, let's have a look, mate. Just to let you know, the barometers on the FTSE 100 have weakened slightly. We're down at 27% of stocks in positive territory, so that leaves a big 73% all now to the downside. We started at 70, so just a few more have edged into negative territory. So a little bit of a heavy day today so far.
Okay, happy days. Let's look at a couple of currency pairs. First up, there's the pound. The pound's going off at the moment to the downside, and this bar is valid because we were triggered on this bar. So the first 15-minute bar has been formed. If we now get a second, we move our stop loss immediately to there, and then on and on and on and on and on. We hope, well, in some regards, we hope. In other regards, of course, we are still long on the bigger picture, but we've taken 2 lots of profit off that, so it's not the end of the world. If it does go south now, we probably, on balance, would be making more money if we went to the downside under normal circumstances. Right, let's start. Oh, hang on. Defined end of day, which exchange time zone close? New York close is end of day as far as I'm concerned. You, in your own time zone, will have obviously daylight savings and all sorts of things interfering with whatever that may be on an exact time scale. But when New York closes, so do I, as far as I'm concerned. So whatever that is in your time zone, then happy days. If your broker is attuned to that, then that's exactly when it should happen. Now, my time at the moment, candles close, the daily candle close is at 0700, and therefore should be what? I think, are we now 2 or 3 hours? 2 hours, I think. What time is it in Singapore now? Is it 2:30, isn't it? Or 3:30? I can't remember whether we're 2 hours, because we've just changed from daylight saving and I get completely thrown. But if you take it from your broker, if the daily close is at, say, 5:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, then that would be considered to be end of day as far as I'm concerned. Be very careful around that, because the spreads can go out to billio, and if you are near an entry, you can get 3:30. Right, okay. So in your case, it'd be 5 a.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong. There is a disturbing report that COVID was bioengineered and started off by killing lab technicians. What? First who never had any contact with the, oh, okay. So the virus killed the lab technicians. Yeah, you don't know who to believe, Helen. It's really, really very interesting. All the conspiracy theories will come out, and we've heard a lot of them already. The weird part about conspiracy theories is that they make sense a lot of the time, and so does this particular one make sense if you pull it apart. But where do you go with that? I don't know. That's up to the individual. So hopefully end of day is sorted for you, Crystal. Ace, for slingshot strategy, how should we be drawing the trade line based on 2 touches? Use which time frame and how far back? How recent? I'll tackle that in the second half hour, if you don't mind, Ace. And I think we're up to date. Is gold looking into the bearish after looking at daily? Ash will have a look at that. D1 trading into H1. DXY is also strong. Yep, coming back. That is the dollar index, for those of you who don't know. I'm still ultra bearish, though, on the dollar. So this is all good for me. I'm liking the fact that we're pulling back. Been calling for it. If I don't take advantage of it, then so be it. But I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing so far. Apart from this one, I suppose, and this is where I began the journey. We tried to trade this yesterday. And look, as I said, to those who were in the session, and I don't know if it was this session or the evening session, we tried to trade really the higher low here. And we decided the best place to trade that would have been here with our stop loss here. DR1 was bang on here, bang on that level there. Now, the rules of my strategy prevent me from going through that level without taking profit. Now, what happens was I didn't see that we were actually taken into the trade until this was coming back down and retesting our high. So I didn't take profit at that point. So then I was asked the question, where would we take TP1? Well, I then said 50 pips, which was just about here, because I'd already missed the TP1. I apologize for that. That should not be the case. And if that has cost you any money, I do apologize. Hopefully not too much, because we did say that this was a very, very light and early entry. Certainly it was early. And look what happened when we got that second higher low. Bang. So timing is absolutely everything, is it not? And it's one thing seeing it coming, it's the other just getting there. The good part, I suppose, is that we still made a truckload out of it on the way down, and our exit was there. That's pretty cool. If you've taken, I think it was nearly 700 pips on that trade, might have been even a little bit more, to miss the bottom by 92 ain't that bad. So that's the good part about it. The bad part about it is we're not in the long. And now I don't really need or want to get in the long. I'm now waiting just to get back into the short on pound Aussie. We may need to hit a strong resistance level, and that clearly in my book is around about that level. So 198.60, the weekly pivot, form of support. That's where I'll be looking to go short. If we do set up short in the meantime, would I be willing to get back in? No, not at all. I've got to see this want to go short again. And for that to happen, we really have to get back inside the range. And until that happens, I definitely won't be looking to trade short from up here unless we hit this strong resistance level. So that's pound Aussie. Oh, documentary about Wuhan Institute of Virology by Epoch Times. Scary. Okay, interesting, Helen. It's all very interesting, I've got to say. Whether it makes any difference to the end results, I guess, is debatable. And the markets at the moment, also debatable. Euro Aussie was exactly the same. We had an order placed on this, didn't trigger. So I guess that's one good thing. The possibility to trade today was there, however. If you manage to see this bar here or that bar there, you may well have got into this long. As I said, not trading. I don't trade at that time of day, certainly not on a small time frame. So no way I could get in. And now it's like, don't cry over spilt milk. I've missed the entry. And therefore now I have to wait for my bias to kick back in and coincide with something that I want to trade. Off a resistance level, we are at a resistance level. So I'm pretty okay with that, but I'm also very conscious that we've got an untested weekly pivot to the high side. There's no way I could trade it long from here. We're at daily resistance 3, not going to happen. And for the same reason as I said on pound Aussie, I'm not ready to trade this short yet either until I see something absolutely concrete. Now, I don't really have that range that I've got on pound Aussie to rely on. So this is going to be tough until we hit the weekly pivot on Euro Aussie. I'm out of, I might still be in that. Yeah, still in that CAD Swiss trade remarkably. And gee whiz, it's taking the longest time to get back below these pivots, is it not? That's, I don't know how we're still in this, because we've really gone close to getting taken out of this. We have taken profit on it, of course, so it's not going to be a big loser in any way, shape, or form. In fact, our stop loss is above our entry, so it can only be a winner. You just got to let this one go if you're still in it with me, and I guess cross your fingers that something good happens, and that's probably related to oil, I would think. As far as today is concerned, I don't see anything here that suggests that we're going short, I've got to say. We'd need to have a close below the monthly pivot and a retest of it, I would think, before that would be the case. And as far as the long's concerned, you're probably entitled to be thinking that's the way to go. How would that work? Yeah, look, there's a possibility there. This is the 4-hour chart I'm looking at, so it may happen a lot earlier than that. But if we were to find our way back to here and get above the trend line, and in particular the daily pivot, then come back and test, say, at the confluence area, then I think that would be a very, very good way to find a long. So that's definitely on the cards. We spoke about WTI or oil just a minute ago. And if you have a look at oil at the moment, on which CAD relies heavily, we are bang on these lows and below the $20 mark. Does that make me a bull? No. But just saying, we're at a strong support level. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah. I can't see a way to, in fact, I don't trade oil, but I can't see a way to get into that if you wanted to get into it. But the reasons still remain why I'd be bearish on oil, and therefore it's difficult to see the CAD rallying, and that is a lack of demand for their products. Until I see that, then really it's much of the same. That's why I say it's pretty much keep your fingers crossed on CAD Swissy. Technically, you know, it really has got a little bit of breathing space back up to here. But if you look at that on the other side of the coin, if we break the monthly pivot and put in a lower high based on the bounce off the top, I'm extremely bearish very quickly. But I've got to get that close below the monthly pivot before that's the case. So we'll see. CAD yen now out of that trade at a little. I'm just having a good look at this at the moment, and double bottom, higher high, higher low. That was the trick we were talking about yesterday, was the lower high. If we get a reversal bar here or come back into that channel, that's the daily chart I'm looking at. If we were to come back into here, we've got every reason to think that we'll be headed back to the top of this channel. So that may be a trade also. It's not only the bottom of the channel here, it's also the bottom of this range, which is on a bigger time frame. So yeah, I'd be okay with that. That wouldn't look too bad to me. Another higher low here, and I'd be interested in trading it longer. Again, it's CAD and it's oil related, so very, very difficult to say. Looks like we might get our second for 15-minute close as a bear bar. So be ready to move your stops to above that candle there. If in fact that is the case, of course, this could reverse anytime soon. Dollar yen, we spoke about yen strength and dollar strength in the same breath, not long back in this show, in fact. That's probably why we're seeing this go sideways at the moment, because the market's just doing what it does with both of those pairs or both of those currencies. Look, no reason to do anything here. We're well in profit here. We are at a support level. So if we don't expect to have at least consolidation or retracement here, then something's wrong, because we need to expect that. The one issue that I do have with this is that we go into an extended period of consolidation, which would look like this. You know, two lows here. We could very easily head back to here and put in a second high in that, and just stay in this area for ages. That's my concern. We've got to take this low out, of course, before we get the full prize on this. And if that happens, I'm pretty confident that we'll see it down to the 102 level. So absolutely keep this open. I've kept my stops as wide as possible for this reason. And the weekly pivot would be the last line of defense here if price does look to go that way. I'd be quite okay with that, and probably look to scale back into it if that were the case. So dollar yen, no change. If I'm looking to trade dollar yen today, I'd probably just shake myself and say don't. But we've also got an intraday range, so we can note that. So a couple of highs here and quite a few lows to pick. So there's our range. The way I would look to trade this today is if price were to break and hit the daily pivot, and if that were to be a bullish decisive bar that did that, I'd place an order short directly underneath that bar, provided it wasn't massive. So if I got something like this sitting here, let me just draw that so it becomes a little clearer. So if I've got a candle that looks, say, like this, I'd place an order directly underneath it, short, stop loss here somewhere. So just watch out for that, because that's a potential false break of this range. And if we're wrong, what should happen is price will continue going that way and we won't be taken into a bad trade. The one thing that would change my polarity would be if we came back with the next bar and tested the top of that breakout area. Then we could look to trade it long in that vicinity. So watch out for that one. Look, there are a few possibilities, and I think by US session time, these may have played out. There's really no way I can trade at the moment, and the reason is I'm very, very keen on the Aussie long. I'm very keen on the dollar short, and currently we're undergoing what I believe are retracements on both of those currencies. So until we get those retracements coming to a close, then, and there's another one of them, euro dollar, until we get those retracements ending or turning into reversals, then I'm pretty much out of the market, I've got to say. The Aussie pairs, just quickly, and those of you who have been following me and the Aussie pairs, you will know that I've been calling for a weekly pivot test on every single one of them. That seems to be happening on Aussie yen. Aussie Swiss is on the way, but a long way to go. Same Aussie CAD, same Aussie Kiwi, and same Aussie dollar. So I'm really not looking to trade these pairs until we get down to there. I don't really want to trade them down to there either, because I've got no confidence in the strength of the dollar. Why we're seeing this at the moment, we were overbought, I believe. And for that reason, the market is coming back. How far it comes back, of course, is the big question. And I've nominated the weekly pivot as my testing material, or where I actually want to get back into the long. So won't be doing that till there. And of course, the reverse, I've already discussed. Weekly pivot. If that's going to happen, I think we're going to be in for a really nice time, guys. But it's just a matter of waiting for it to happen. And if it does, then happy days. If it doesn't, it might be a boring old few days, a few old sessions, I think. Any bullish bar we can take to buy oil? Ooh, I don't trade oil, but gee whiz, I'd have to have a good reason to want to trade it. I really would want to have a good reason, and that reason would have to be a great base. I get that. I'd have to see it rally and come back, and put in a higher low before I'd even think about it, because I just don't believe there's any demand for oil at the moment. I don't get it. And yes, I know there's instructions going on that China's got to fill up all their boats and fill up all their tanks and all the rest of it. But really, can they really store that much oil? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, mate?
Do you know what? The other thing about that, I mean, I wouldn't touch it, and I tell you why, StarMax. The really interesting thing here is the fact that the commodity currencies are pretty weak this morning. You know, we got the Kiwis lower, the Aussies lower, the NOKI's lower as well. So, you know, all these are oil related, or at least commodity-based currencies, and they're all moving lower. So there's not really anything out there which is suggesting that we should be trading oil in any direction, but down still. I mean, I wouldn't want to trade it down here, to be fair. I think it's incredibly dangerous at these low levels, but because it could just fly back to the upside. But until it actually breaks trend, which, you know, just like the FTSE, just like all these other markets, we are going to get time with oil. If oil is going to genuinely put in a higher low, just like it did last week, there's an opportunity to get some profit out of it. And then if it goes and continues, great. If it doesn't, at least you would have got into some trades to the upside. So I wouldn't be touching it. I can deal with the gold question as well in a little while, Jeff, when you're done as well.
Do it now, mate. Why not?
Okay, all right. Pass this over then.
I'll change this stop loss on the pound to 125.63, I think it was.
Oh, nice, man. We're on the move.
We are on the move. We just need another another bear bar to be in profit, and then we'd like to see a retracement back to, I don't know, a decent level below our stop loss, and then go again. That's what we want to see.
Yes. This is good.
125.63, I think I said. Yep. All right, so that's where your stop should be now, guys, which is just a little bit above our entry. Next candle, we are in profit with any good fortune. Right, mate. Away you go.
Right, great stuff. We can get excited as well about the FTSE 100. So we are pretty much about to put in a trade entry on the FTSE 100. Let's check this one out first. In actual fact, no, let's not check this one out first. Let's come back to gold first. Right, now gold. There's a couple of issues with gold, which would suggest to me that it's still a little bit early. And the big thing is, if we consider, firstly, how we define trend. And the way we define trend is a series. Let's talk about an uptrend, which would be a series of higher highs and higher lows. Higher high, higher low. Higher high, higher low, and higher high, higher low. And these trends tend to run in a kind of run with a diagonal line. They tend to kind of test these diagonal lines. So the first thing that we need to do really is define how how and where the trend actually does break down. Now you could definitely argue this one. So we're gonna say here that we've got the lower high. Sorry, a lower low on the 4-hour chart here. I'm looking at a 4-hour chart. We got a lower low on the 4-hour chart. We got a retest there, and we sell it off. That is more than arguable. You could certainly justify. It's more than justifiable to say that we're going to go short there. No problem at all with that. But there is an issue with that, because what happened here? Do we have a break? We don't really, I suppose, but you could maybe make the same argument there, and you would have got caught out. So what I'd want to do really is see if I can get some confluence, and the confluence is going to come. Now that's not going to happen every time, but let's say in this particular instance, I would want the trend line to be broken down as well, and we've really got a line that goes along here that we're not too far away from. Now let's just see if we can tighten that up at all and still justify it. Probably not. In actual fact, that is where I'd put it, and I'll tell you why I'd put it there. I think I'd use this trend line here because it's almost like a different phase. This one, was in this phase here, and now we're in this trend here. That's what I'm looking at, the trend there. Now the good thing about this trend line is that it also gives us the horizontal level. We should probably focus on it breaking down. Now, if it breaks down that horizontal level, we're going to be much more comfortable in saying gold is now in a minor, because it's only a 4-hour chart, minor trend to the downside, and even minor is stretching the definition, because a minor trend to the downside should be on a daily. But we're going to use the 4-hour, because if we were to use the daily, then we're at a pretty parabolic line, so we don't need to worry too much about using the daily in this instance. We can use the 4-hour. So what would likely happen here? If this was to behave as we would expect the trend to behave, is that we break down and we end up somewhere down here, and then we reverse at this point and then move back up again. And when we move back up again and test this level, then we can think about trading it down, but not until it breaks down, bounces off the weekly pivot, comes back up to our level or line. It could be the trend line. It could be this area here. We're going to have to look for signs and signals around here that it's reversing. And if we see signs and signals after the break and retest, then we can trade it down. Alternatively, if you're happy with it breaking down and you've got a fundamental reason for the short, you can just put an order in here. Okay, now the reason I'm saying that is that's exactly what we're going to do with the FTSE. So first of all, does that make sense? Really what the point with this is that we have not yet broken down the trend. Not the trend that I'd be comfortable trading anyway. As I say, you could argue this point for sure, But really, you know, if it bounces back up again, what does that suggest? It just suggests that this line is held. Could go beyond that point. Maybe we get some weakness there, but this trend line is still there. It's the elephant in the room. And you can see that there is, you know, if we look at this on a 5-minute chart here, you can see that there is a little bit of a pickup in activity here as people are trying to buy this back up again. So does this hold and sweep away where we want to go short? Maybe, maybe not, but it doesn't matter because really what we're after is pretty much the same price anyway. So if this gives way, bounces off the weekly pivot and comes back, then we can trade it short. And that what might well give us is a left shoulder and maybe even a right shoulder over here. Possibly, we'll see what happens with that. But that would suggest some downside. So is there any more questions about that? LT, we'll talk about oil in a second, selling oil, and I'll tell you why I'm not keen on that either. But that's what I want to do with gold. Who was asking about gold? I can't find who it was asking about gold, but that's hopefully something for everybody anyway. That's gold. That's gold. Now, yeah, no problem, LT. Now, gold, then oil. With oil, the reason that I wouldn't be comfortable selling oil here is because of this indicator. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think oil is going lower, because I think it probably is. But it is a bit of a probably. But look at this RSI and look how it reacts. You know, when we come down here, oversold, and it didn't bounce to the upside, but it did actually give us a better entry point. So even if you're looking to short this here, you wouldn't want to short it there. You'd probably want to short it on a bounce. You know, maybe back up to 22. So comes down to oversold, it bounces here. Comes back down to oversold, it holds fire a little bit, then it gets embedded, and this is where it, you know, the indicator is just completely out of sync, so completely useless really. But again, comes down to oversold, it bounces at oversold territory, and actually then it turns into an uptrend. Now we are in oversold territory here, which is the worst point. You know, we don't want to be selling here. We want to be selling when it's up here somewhere, or at least at 50%. You know, this point would have been okay. This point here, as it breaks down to 50%, that's okay. But down here, it's a bit of a no-go area. I don't know what it looks like on the daily. The daily looks like it's got some room to get to oversold. So because it has got that room on the daily, if you're looking at this on a longer-term time frame, then getting down to that particular point there would suggest that it can come down there. The problem with this, is that there's probably not a great deal of room on a daily chart to be entering this, because on a daily chart, the resistance level is up here. So you're looking at, you know, practically, well, that's $10. You know, you'd have to put your stop above the 30 level. Is it going to come down $10 from here? Maybe it will, down to $9, but you know, it'd have to go to 0 to give you a 2-to-1. Doesn't seem like good value to me. That's why I wouldn't trade it. Not because I don't think it's coming down, but I don't think the value is there. I think there's better, more valuable trades to enter. And the one that I'm going to look at is the FTSE. Now, the FTSE is still in a buy zone to a degree, but not on the 4-hour. And I'm going to trade this off the 4-hour. Look at what's happened here. Hopefully you guys can see that, actually. Let's look at this on an hourly. It's taken out these pivots. Now, that's what we needed. We needed the FTSE to take out the area of support. Now, it's taken out a couple of things here. It hasn't taken out the trend line, I don't think, but let's have a look. It's taken out that one on the hourly. But to my knowledge, it hasn't taken out this lower one here. It's right on top of that trend line there. Might even have taken that out slightly. So now we can look for shorts in the FTSE. Okay, now the short that I want for the price that I want the short is going to be somewhere probably around 5,700. Now we're currently at 5,680, let's call it. So 20 pips above where we are now would be the first point that I'd want to go short at, somewhere here. but that's going to be so close to that weekly pivot. It's somewhere in this area that I want to look for signs and signals. It could go up to 57.40. So this whole area is where I want to start looking for signs and signals that we're going to be shorting. So we need a retracement. That's a decent bar. It's a good bar. That like that bar a lot. So we need a decent retracement. If it retraces back up to there, I'm still interested in the short. Now that does put us back above this trend line, but I'm not too concerned about that, because what I was really waiting for is for a 4-hour chart to be broken down, just as we're just looking at with gold. And this really has broken down now. You know, there's our level of support just there. Is that the previous one? Maybe. What we have here is the top end of the structure. What we have down here is the bottom end of the structure. That structure is now broken down, and that price now gives me actually 57.30. So we're about 50 pips away from where we want to be entering this short. Okay, so I am going to put in an order at 57.30. Now let me just see what my I will do it for you guys on a thing. 57.30. The pivots will probably hold it up, so I might need to do it 57.20. These pivots here may well hold it up. Now between the two pivots, it's about 20 pips. So you know, I might have to give up 10 just to make sure that the trade is on. So let's put it on around about 57.20 for this particular trade here. So let's open up the. Now, your lot size is going to be different than mine because I'm trading futures. So it will indicate something slightly different, okay? So be careful when you put your lots on. I'm putting a sell limit in. In actual fact, let me do this for you guys. So your weekly pivot is in a different place to mine. So you're aiming for the monthly here. So probably 57.50. 57.50. So you could go to 57.40. Something in between, maybe 57.45, something like that. But that's the area that you want to be looking to trade in. So let's say yours might be at 1. Now this isn't got any relationship to your account size or my account size either. Actually, it's just I want to put this on your thing so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. So it'll be a sell limit pending order. The volume I've got at 1, but yours probably will be 0.02. I'm sure you can do that. I don't know. 0.02. Your stop loss is going to be, if it comes up to this point here, stop loss. You could go with stop loss here, just above the daily pivot. That looks like a pretty good place. Could go right up there, but I think if it comes up to that point, you'd probably want to get out because it might be changing around. So let's put it at 58.60. So 58.60 for that. And you're going to sell at 57.45, let's call it. Doesn't look like you can do less than that, unfortunately. So you have to find out what that's going to cost you and what your account size is. Okay. And then you can place it. All right. So you got your volume, stop loss at 58.60, sell limit. So you want to click your pending order, sell limit, and the price is going to be to enter 57.45. Now, if you start to see signs and signals that it's coming down before that, you're going to have to, you know, if you want to get into this trade, then I'd enter it a little bit earlier. Okay. That's what you're waiting on now. So There is enough for me though, mate, to say that I am getting into this trade. So I'm going to go at 50. Gosh, that's might have to put mine in at 57. Well, I'm going to go with 57.25. I'm going to go higher than I probably anticipate it coming to, but I'm going to go with that at 57.25. And I just have to bite it if it doesn't quite get me in. Right, that's now in the market. You won't see the lines on my chart because I hate lines all over my chart telling me where my trades are. I want to just look at this thing visually. So, but that order's in. You can see that order's been placed in the market. So that's what I am doing, and you guys can either follow or choose not to. Entirely your choice. But just to kind of let you guys know. Yeah.
Right, mate.
Is that okay for you, Helen? 57.45 to 58.60 is going to be 115 pips. Now we are aiming, our first target is down here. Okay, so you're looking at around about 350 pips to the downside. So we're looking at around about 3 to 1. Check your lots. Yeah, it's tricky when you do the UK 100 because I'm doing the futures and the on this broker it's all a bit different. But yeah, check your lot size. I'm pretty sure on the UK 100, one is either a pound or a dollar per pip. So if you can't take the trade, write it down. Because it might get to the point that if you've noted down, and actually, Jeff, we'll have to add this one into our journal, won't we?
We will. Yep.
So we'll add this one into the journal. If you can't write it down, so if you can't take the trade, write it down just so you're getting a gauge. Because as much as anything else, you know, you guys are trying to progress and move forward. So even if you don't take a trade, no big deal. The most important thing is that you learn what, how to go through the process. I don't hold any trade in such high regard that it has to be the winner, you know, because one of them is going to win. One of them is going to win, and it's going to win enough to cover everything else. Obviously, I want more than one winner, and I try and win try and make money on every single trade. But if this one does win, then it's going to give us, as I say, around about 3 to 1, 4 to 1, something like that, to the downside, maybe 3.5 to 1. So if it does actually come through, then we don't need to worry about some of those losses on the way. But we need to be confident that we are taking the trade in the correct way. So you need to note it down. Note down what you put down if you're not making the trade, and then you can do. But take profit one is going to be on the UK 100s. It's going to be around about there. So 53.74. Seems a long way down, right? But that's just the way. That's just what I'm looking for. I'm bearish on this market. I've got a long-term view that we should be coming down, and we might even come down to see the lows again. Yeah. So your open price should be different. Your where you're placing your order should be different. I mean, it's still a little ways off from entry. You're looking at entering at 57.45, so you're still 35 pips below where you're going to be entering potentially. Yeah, that should be it, mate. Anyway, that should be
right,
it.
Mate. Happy days. A couple of things to do before we close, and one of them is to answer Naveen's question from before, and that was, if he wants to trade the US breakout, right, which is something that we're considering doing but haven't got into yet. Let me share the right screen. There we go. Now, bang on US Open today, we have news. So that really does add spice to the breakout, I've got to tell you. Now, what we do under those circumstances is extremely personal. But if you are going to trade a system, then you need to get that system right before you start trading it at the end of the day. That's why we're in beta test mode on the pound US dollar breakout trade, right? Now, I am trading it with real money, but it's very, very small real money. With this particular one today, as I said, 1:30 p. What time frame am I on? GMT, right? So 1 hour before the US market opens, because the US market opens at 9:30 Eastern time, which is, and this is 8:30 Eastern time, you would need then to consider two things. One would be, are you going to trade just the system and not filter it until you can prove that that's not the way to go? The other one is, do you want to add filters before and become more, I guess, responsible, if you like? So if the answer is you just want to trade the system, then you trade the system, and the system says, well, if it's a direct copy of what we're doing, you trade the last 3 bars prior to US Open, or the range of the last 3 bars prior to US Open, and adjust your entry and stop loss accordingly, and place one long, one short, cancel the one that doesn't trigger. So that's the system. Don't change it. But if you're going to add filters to it and say, well, okay, I don't want to trade around news time, then the answer becomes don't trade until the markets settle down. In fact, just give it a miss today, because this could still be jostling around in spades, or worse still, it may have moved as far as it wants to move on the back of that news event, and then it goes back in the opposite direction after it takes you in. So it does become a bit tricky. But if you just want to trial the system and the system alone without filters, then you need to place the trade as normal on the US Open. I hope that helps and answers the question for you. There was another question there, I think, for me, but I can't remember. Take a quick squeeze. No, I look okay. So I'm done. All right, stops, guys. In 1 minute time, might as well stay here and move the stop for a third time. It will go above this bar this time. So your stop should move to 125.16 as soon as this candle closes, which is 10 seconds away from now. So it's not going to move. We can do that now. 120, what did I say? Let me get it right. The high is 125.35. So 125.36 is where we want our stop loss, which is bang on there. Okay, so we've got a bit of a run going on the pound. What we really want to see now is price come back to here. So we want a buying bar here coming back just to that level, which is perfect level, and then go again. And then we can really get some profits going up. Okay, is there a TP1? No, just keep trailing. Sorry, there is a caveat on that. If we're in a news event, we make a TP1 at 1-to-1.
Is that to do with the FTSE, or is that to do with the other trade?
Sorry, yeah, good question.
if that's to do with the FTSE, you can put a take profit one. Yep. You don't have to. You know, I'm not putting take profits in, but you know, if you really want to put a take profit in, then your take profit one is going to be at 53.75. And you're just going to take half. Okay, take half of that. So if you can't put take profit one if you are just doing one order. So what you'll need to do is split your order into two halves. Now, you may not have the ability to do that. I don't know how big your account size is, but if your account size will only allow you, given the risk to reward, to put one trade in, yeah, 53.75. If you can put up, if your account size will allow, then you just put two orders in the market, put a take profit on one of them, but not the other. So it will close half the trade effectively. If you can't put a take profit in, then you'll just do it manually. You'll open it up and take, just close half the trade at that particular point.
Wow, this pound is really having a tank at the moment.
It's having a good time, mate. Having a good time. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. We'll leave it at that then, shall we? And come back and do the US Open in around about 4 hours and 43 minutes. Do you think?
Yes. Yes, Helen. 0.01 lots. The first one you're going to put a TP on that says 53.75. Second one, no take profit. Do we need to mention? In fact, let's do it in the afternoon show. We're just going to mention the link, mate, but we can do that later today, can't we?
Yeah, I think that's the place to do it, frankly. Yes.
Okay.
Righto.
Okay. All right, everybody okay?
Have a nice break, and we will catch whoever's coming back in, as I say, 4 hours and 42 minutes from now.
Yes, sounds good. All right, yes, have a good one, guys. We'll see you in 4 hours and 42 minutes. That's a date.
Have fun, everyone. See you then.
Yeah.
Bye-bye for now.